Welcome to Biodump with me, Bert, and today I have my guest here, Gert, to discuss the skeletal system.
Hi, thanks for having me on your show. I've been doing a lot of research on bones lately. So many bones.
With all of the vast knowledge that you've gained, I've been quite interested in your phalanges.
Well, I'm glad you asked, Bert, because I've got all the information you need.
What do they do?
Well, Bert, every finger and toe has 3 phalanges. You've got the proximal, the middle and the distal. These help move and manipulate objects around us, and the foot phalanges help us to walk, run and balance our bodies.
Oh, I see. So, although the fingers and toes are the same sort of bone, they have completely different functions.
Correct, Bert.
My question is, how do they do this?
In the hands, the phalanges are controlled by the carpals and the metacarpals. These are held together by ligaments. These structures enable effective movement. The phalanges in the feet are connected to the metatarsals, which are designed along with other bones in our feet. These create the arches that support our body's weight and provide leverage when walking.
Wow, this is all really interesting. Bones are really interesting. I don't suppose you've got any other bones that I'd be interested in.
Well, Bert, I've had a friend called Kurt who has helped me research a bone, and I think you'll be very interested in this bone.
I'd love to meet this Kurt and their great bone that they want to tell me about.
Come in, Kurt.
Hi Bert, hi Gert.
Hello, Kurt.
Yes, the femur is a great bone, signified by its strength, which is attributed to its height and length being the heaviest and longest bone in the body. However, it is not the strongest bone. The reason it's effective is because it's supported by strong muscles and tough, thick ligaments, notably the sartorius, which runs from the hip to the knee for the ability of flexion for the whole leg to rotate laterally. It's quite interesting with the juxtaposition of the neck of the femur, which is quite thin and susceptible to fracture. Interestingly, the femur is not just a straight bone, but includes the ball and socket joint. The bone itself is shaped in quite an absurd way, exclusively to fit this joint to allow an increase in a range of movement, such as lateral abduction,
Proximal abduction,
rotation,
circumduction.
but also due to its position, it acts as reactionary suspension and reduces impact, such as landing with bending your knees. This unison makes the thigh and the femur as strong as they are. Even the curve of the femur provides shock absorbency.
Thanks Gert and thanks Kurt. This has been a great dump and I'm glad to have shared it with you. And I'm glad to share it with you too. And hopefully we'll see you next time for our next season of Biodump.
There are 3 types of joints: fixed, semi-movable and fully movable. The fully movable type of joint, also called the synovial joint, includes the shoulder and the elbow in between the radius and the ulna. The surfaces of the synovial joints are coated by articular cartilage and reinforced and supported by ligaments, which are a strong fibrous tissue and help to stop overstretching and possible permanent damage. Some examples of the fixed joints, also known as synarthrosis joints, are the cranium and the sacrum. The third and final joint that we've been looking at is the semi-movable joint, also known as the amphoresis joints. This refers to joints that are limited in movement and include parts such as the cartilage in between the vertebrae and also the pelvis, which can move when needed, such as during childbirth. The main purpose of all joints is to support bones, structures and allow movement and flexibility within the body. The joints of the body relate to the movement and 3 types of muscle contraction. These are concentric contraction, which is when the muscle is not extended or contracted, eccentric contraction when the muscles are elongated, and isometric contraction when the muscle is fully contracted. Overall, muscle coordination refers to how the muscles all work together with timing and the magnitude that is in relation to their contractions. The next type of joint that we've looked into is the fixed joint. Fixed joints refer to the joints that don't move at all, and they are formed usually of collagen.
The lungs help oxygen from the air we breathe in enter into red cells within our blood. The lungs also help the body get rid of any carbon dioxide as we breathe out. Chemoreceptors, known to me and you as tissues, not like this type of tissue there, are located all around our body, and they impact on our breathing rate by monitoring changes of pH within our blood. Now, Mark, I am really liking this assignment you've given us to do on the skeletal system. I've explained the organ part, the lungs, the tissue part, the chemoreceptors. Now moving on to the cells. Cells within our body have in them something called organelles. These are found in almost every single cell in our body. The main organelle in respiration is called the mitochondria. This is known to us as the powerhouse cell. No, not that type of powerhouse. It's called the powerhouse as this keeps the cell full of energy. Ida, you have far too many mitochondria floating around your body at this moment. Calm down. Loose connective tissue. Loose connective tissue is called this due to fibres being loosely organised. They provide support, flexibility and strength. The loose connective tissue support the internal organs whilst also surrounding the blood vessels, lymph vessels and the nerves. Loose connective tissue is a category of connective tissues. These are called the areola, the reticular and adipose tissues. Cells called fibroblasts are dispersed widely within the tissue. Dense fibrous tissues, known to me and you as dense connective tissue, is mainly put together with fibres that are parallel. These compose of collagen, which is the type 1 collagen. They are found in our ligaments and tendons. The position of the collagen fibres makes them able to stretch, even though they are poorly vascularized. Moving on from the stretchier sides of the collagen fibres, we have something in our bodies which is called the elastic connective tissue. This is very similar, but as well as having the collagen fibres, it also has numerous elastic fibres. This tissue, due to it being so elastic, allows the tissue to return to its original length once it's been stretched. These are found within our skin, for example.
Today is going to be a gnarly one, because we're not looking about how bones are taken apart, but how they're put together. I thought we'd start with something easy. What do you mean none of it's easy? Each year, about 10% of our bones are remodeled. Typically, the bones that work the hardest are the ones that get the preferential treatment and are the ones that are remodeled more often. This is triggered by the parathyroid, which detects low blood plasma in the blood vessels within the bones. This is called endochondral ossification bone remodeling. There are some pretty important cells involved in this process, so it's probably important you know what I'm saying. Some of the cells involved in this include osteocytes, osteoblasts, osteoclasts, and osteoprogenitors. Juicy. These make up special tissues called osseous tissue and a special collagen called ossein. Ossein? You see the problem. Yo, can we take a break? What do you mean we only just began? Onto remodeling. No, I'm not going to say endochondral ossification every single time. Onto endochondral ossification. Osteoclasts dissolve bone with acid and uses enzymes to destroy the harder collagenase in the bone matrix. Osteoblasts will take over and create a collagen scaffold out of osteoid. These same osteoblasts will go on to become osteocytes when they get stuck or undergo apoptosis and become part of the bone. Remodeling doesn't have osteoclasts, so it's good for increasing mass, which increases or maintains strength, and also optimizing structure. Are we done now? Intramembranous ossification? What on earth is that? Intramembranous ossification occurs in flat bones such as the ribs or the skull, and instead of replacing hyaline cartilage, it occurs directly from mesenchymal connective tissue. Stem cells form an embryonic fibrous tissue which forms osteoblasts. Hey, I remember those. These osteoblasts work a little differently from the ones we've seen previously. They form something called an ossification station. What? Ossification center. Are you sure this is the script? We'll have to do it in ADR. Spicules shoot out of the ossification center and become trabeculi, not to be confused with Alex Trebek. These trabeculi are what become woven bone. Blood vessels, which were present before the bone was formed, condense into a periosteum, which is the outer part of the bone, and lamellar bone forms between the periosteum and the spongy bone. Finally done. I'll take my check, please. Yeah, you can make it out to distinction. Ugh, this is what happens when you work with cats. Today we're interviewing for a muscle to be the sole muscle of the body. I see this is going to be a long day. So, what muscle are you? Cardiac. I'm located in the heart. Anywhere else? No. Are you okay? Do you need a drink? Oh, it's just because I'm striped, which is just so boring, so I've connected everything in different irregular angles. Sounds very useful for a heart to contract centrally. Not much use for anything else than intercalciated discs. Right, next! What's that? Tendons. I rely on them to move bone, but that doesn't stop me. Look, I'm striated. 2! I call them sarcomeres. Much like the cardiac muscle, it allows for short, intense bursts. Is there anything else? I'm voluntary. We'll pay you in oxygen and tax you in lactic acid, just like everyone else. Oh no, not like that. Unlike my competitors, you can choose when to move me. So I'll have to choose every single beat of my heart, and I'll have to always be choosing when to breathe in and when to breathe out. I have some involuntary capabilities, such as maintaining posture. Holding things still doesn't help the heart beat. Next! What's that? Smooth muscle is everywhere, so they decided to send me. I'm from the aorta. So that's... Yes, collagen fibers. Do you want to see my lumen? So, why should I hire you? I'm actually already in most of your organs. I'm applying to the brain, but it says that I'll slow down its synapses, which doesn't make any sense because I speed up the blood. You also slow blood down. When it rests, you also just seem slow in general. Yeah, I'm not striated, so I move smooth. That's not really useful for things like chewing food or moving my hands. I'm in the esophagus. That's just transportation. Next! I like your tie. You're hired. Hi, I'm Hank, and today we're going to be looking at whatever on earth this is. I'm joined by my assistant, Plank. Well, the best way to start with something like this is to be from the start, I suppose. In this case, the muscle fibre. We move down through the myofill, the sarcomere, filaments of actin, all of that makes up the juicy thing that is the muscle fibre. But then we move on to these little bits that I've circled here. What we're looking at within these circles is the motor units, the motor nerves, so that's these stems here with the little legs like bird feet. It's important to mention that although they look like bird feet, they actually have over 200 binding sites per motor unit.
Following on from that, the sarcoplasmic reticulum stores the calcium and feeds into the calcium binding site. This is blocked by troponin, and this blocks the attachment site of the myosin cross bridge and prevents the muscle from contracting. Following on to this next bit, I don't know what it is, but Tank does.
Hi, I'm Tank. As you can see, we have a small section here, which is a small section of there, and a small section of there. And here, it goes down into this area. The green bits are called the actin, and the red bits are called the myosin. This gap in the middle is called the H zone. With these little, like, say, linked arms in the middle, these contract, causing all that to contract inwards, which is then making the Z line come forward.
And that is the sliding filament model.
So here we have a zoomed in part of the motor unit. This bit here being the motor unit, and these bits here being the motor nerves. What I've detailed here is the axon that runs all the way up to the spinal cord, then up to the brain, or depending on where in the body it is. It is covered or surrounded by a myelin sheath, or myelin, and the sodium ions that travel through the axons come out and rebind later on. What this does is it allows for the ions to travel much quicker through the axon to get to the muscle quicker. So once the impulse arrives, it triggers these vesicles which contain a neurotransmitter molecules, in this case calcium, and releases them from the synaptic knob through the synaptic gap to connect to the calcium binding sites.
The troponin allows the calcium
to bind to the calcium binding site, which in turn allows the actin to reach out to the myosin head.
Motor unit recruitment is an important part of muscle function as it provides the muscles with varying amounts of impulses in order to pick up objects of varying weights.